and lucky to learn from some of the visionaries in this field, Professor Matt Jones and team in Swansea University, when I was part of, I was an MTech student at IIT Bombay. They had this interesting idea about alternative design. So local ideas given by the community, iterated by the community, and then thinking about these ideas in a global perspective, taking to different communities and getting feedback. And what we can say, think local, act global. So it was very interesting idea at that time for me, and then that's why I'm still able to collaborate with the team and then push my work forward in that direction. First project that I want to kind of discuss here in this forum is a work that I was part of, and it was published in 2025. And so Here I want to just open discussion about how technology design is traditionally approached in our work. So we all know the conversational interfaces, like how the ethical issues, the privacy issues. A lot of things are in the news. A lot of discussions are happening for all these years. So this work, we intend to show a different way of approaching this, a way where we can approach technology design in a more honest and more transparent way. So we have seen previously that raw human responses on smart speakers provide benefits, particularly in a public place. Because the context in those places make it very difficult for machines to kind of understand and give meaningful inputs. And we also know that companies, big MNCs, they use humans to recognize, classify, train models for using their inputs in the real neural networks to train the AI ones. And there are, as we all know, like backlash against this for privacy and other reasons. So in this project, we kind of tried to blend the machine and the human, and we didn't try to hide this fact. We put it in a open, transparent way to kind of amplify and cherish the human responses. Just to give a context about the community here, most of us are from Mumbai, so most of us are well-lovers, and we have visited Dharavi many times. But some of us in the audience might not be that familiar with Dharavi. So Dharavi has a very large informal economy, and of especially relevance to work, and residents communicate in many different languages. So we are thinking about a speech system in this community, right? So the first challenge started there, like. It had a different, it was a very diverse set of people living there who are migrated from all over the country, and they have different levels of textual and media literacy. So this is why users from places like Dharavi are referred to as emergent users. So emergent users are people who are just getting their hands on advanced digital technology, such as a mobile phone, but aren't necessarily able to access all the functions. Um, so, so I'll just touch upon a couple of work which was done before my involvement in the project, because that will add more context to this work. So in 2018 Kai paper, the team have reported a study in Dharavi where the challenge was basically emergent users face effective inputting text in their primary language is still a challenge. So during the workshop activities, community members identified speech interactions as a way to break down this barrier. So rapid prototyping was done, and then they kind of used the public smart speakers to understand local languages could be one of the ways to approach this problem. So there was a sort of study that was done in the Dharavi, and this was done and reported in a 2008 guide paper. And then in the following year, following upon the success of that exploratory work, two high fidelity prototypes were designed and deployed in Dharavi. The first system is a Google Assistant powered one. And second, so basically to use it, people press the button and ask a question, and response from Google Assistant is then played through the speaker. So thus the system is a machine powered, and but it gave a instant response. So system on the right is a human powered. So there you press the button, ask a question, only this time the response isn't immediate. Basically, instead of immediate response, they get a 4-digit number, and a person who asked the question have to come back after 10 minutes and then input those four-digit number to get a response from a community member in that area. So so then in the work that I was part of, like we combined both this machine powered and human powered system into a talk back prototype. And the goal was to combine the advantages of each system. So we used the toolkit that was launched as part of the 2019 study. In this study, we kind of deployed around 10 devices across uh, uh, 10 shops in Dharavi, and we studied for around 25 days. So it was a continuation of the previous study. So we were able to keep and leverage the experience of the shopkeepers who were part of the study for the last 1 year. And then so across 10 device, over 25 days, like people asked over around 4,000 questions. And just like the machine powered devices before, users received an instant response from the Hindi version of the Google Assistant. But this time around, we then played an audio prompt that asked user to rate if they were satisfied with the response, and satisfied with the response they received, and using a red X or green check mark on the keypad. So around 26% of the time, users did not rate the response. In this case, talkback system reset after a short timeout and is ready to answer another query. A further 34% of the time, users rated the response that they received positively, and the system resets and wait for another question. And around 40% of the time, users responded negatively, that they didn't like the response from the Google Assistant Hindi version. So then this device kind of gives out a prompt asking if they would like to send this question to a real person to answer this question. So so these are the community members who helped us in this study, and they were using a accompanying app, and they were the questions which were sent by the user to answer from a human answerer were sent to their mobile phones. So some of the examples that we received, like one of them was, who is playing today, was a question that we got multiple times. So it's a typical lexical question that exposes gap in current conversational agent abilities. For example, the question, this kind of a question will get a normal response like, I can't help you with that. So it is also a type of question where humans can fill in that gap. So through shared experience and background knowledge. So in this case, so for the people for somebody who didn't understand the context of this question, just because the IPL, Indian Premier League cricket, was going on, like this question made sense that they were referring to a IPL cricket match. So and then shopkeepers were a big part of this entire system. So some shopkeepers reported occasionally helping first-time users. For instance, by demonstrating the device by indicated how users can rephrase their questions so that they were more likely to understood by the Google Assistant. So answers also kind of noted that it would be difficult, especially for a computer, to understand the dialect of Dharavi and the way residents phrase the questions. Even answerers reported that it would be tiring to answer repetitive questions, and even suggested ways of automating responses in cases of repetition. So, so another theme that emerged was that the answers were motivated by directly helping users. So they were finding value in listening to all these questions that are coming on their devices, and then giving responses to them. So I want to do proper justice to this work, if I like, because I'll share a link to this work in the chat, and for detailed reading, like please do refer to that study. So and in this paper, like a small follow-up study was also done, where we pulled already answered questions, and then devices kind of looked at the incoming question transcriptions and retrieved answers. That system was not so robust, but we did some study, and then findings are also reported in that paper. So here one of the important things to discuss is the interaction flow. So you can see like when everything runs smoothly, when a user asks something like what is the weather, or who is the prime minister, to an AI system knows how to respond. But when the user asks who is playing today, or sometimes the AI system falls short. So this is exactly where human can pick up the work. And in that diagram, this is more complex top to bottom flow. So what differentiates this system from conventional smart speaker is that handover is done transparently at the point of interaction with user awareness and control. We also kind of show that AI needs humans and benefits from their creativity, general knowledge, and ability to understand. So this system further demonstrates it is possible, practical, and beneficial to combine machine and human intelligence in such a way that it is clear to the user when and how human help is enlisted. So while we focused on speech assistance in this particular work, our recommendation for the work was to consider how the design ethic could improve further AI-infused products. Yeah, so at this point of time, uh, if anybody have any questions or thoughts or things they want to share, please, I'll give a couple of minutes, and if somebody wants to say something, respond to the work, or any questions, please, you can ask now.
Dani, we can meanwhile maybe move ahead and take questions perhaps a little later.
Yeah, so do feel free to drop your questions in the chat. Meanwhile, like if questions come up, Kinnari, you can interrupt me there and like maybe ask the question. That's
Absolutely.
yeah. So why I kind of discussed this work at this point of time is because this was a work which kind of was discussing the traditional or the accepted way of technology design. Like most of the things in our lives are kind of we take it for granted. Like why the smartphone is the way it is, or the services that we use daily, why are they designed like that? When the advertisement companies of the world runs these kind of services, where do the privacy stands in this equation, right? So some of the major problems that we face as a society today, maybe there is a need for us to drill down a little deeper and question all these accepted ways of working, or the economic model behind all these things, which we have accepted or taken for granted. So moving forward, community-based design have its own challenges. Challenges as in like how do we, like a person might ask, how do we scale up such engagements, or how do we get in touch with the community members? How do we recruit? How do we go about this? Because there is a lot of uncertain back and forth interaction between the researchers and between the community. And frankly, all my interactions with different communities have taught me something to kind of you have to have absolute trust in the process, because at the beginning, maybe for 3 or 4 months or a long time at this stretch, we won't have any idea about where it is going. It's a process of constant discussion, constant like a strong passion to understand the challenges and be a part of it. Is there a question, or I could hear somebody?
No, it wasn't. It was just someone with their mic on.
Yeah, cool. So this is a very recent engagement that we were doing. It was done in a southern state of Kerala, and we were engaging farming community there. The community was very unique in the sense that they had a very different dialect. It's a combination of two prominent languages, as you can see. The place is right at the border of two big states with two different cultures, and because of that, the amalgamation of the culture also thrown out interesting dynamics between the communities. So our aim was to basically to understand perception on pesticide use. We kind of had a clear idea about, because we started this exploration with a team. So Thomas Reitmeyer from Swansea University, he's a computer scientist, and Awaving is a entomologist. So we had a common, we had our own interests. I'm a designer based in India, working with group communities in India. So we all had our own islands, and then we kind of decided and discussed about potential opportunities in India. And I came across this community because of my friend who lives there, and he's a farmer. So and when you, I always felt when you reach out to communities, like you need, like if you have a community leader, somebody who is there in the field, who is living there, who is going through that lived experience, but also somebody who can communicate back to you, trust you, then it is very easy. It is, I think, like looking forward to community-based design as a as a methodology. Like this factor, this is a challenge that we have to kind of think about how to solve it. Because I have been to communities where I walked in and started interacting with like absolute strangers, and there are instances where I was lucky to be part of working with somebody from the community, and the interactions were completely different, and the outcomes are completely different. So just to, so that is one of the starting challenges that we will face, as I faced as a designer who is going into this community. Going forward, like, so these are some of the snaps that I kind of saw in this community. To give a context about the people who lives in this community. So I met this wonderful couple. They were living in a big farm, and then they were carrying out their everyday farming activities all by themselves, and they also had, like, everybody had a whenever we try to talk to people about pesticide use, they always had this different stories about how it affected their families, how they have kind of moved away from it, but they cannot live without it. So to give it, like, the broader sense that we got is like farming as an activity is very labor intensive, and the capital that is involved in the farming, mostly it's not recovered. They incur small amount of losses, and that add cumulatively and become big debts. Third thing that we kind of discovered is, like, without pesticides, they cannot go ahead with the farming, because the forces of nature is such that, like, they cannot control pests with organic ways of doing at the current stage, is what I'm saying. So those are the things that we learned kind of from visiting these farms. And now, as a technology enthusiast, going into these fields and then thinking about what kind of solutions that we could do. So things light up in our brains that, oh, it could be an app, it could be a device, it could be nowadays everybody have a smartphone. All these assumptions are thrown out of the window once you start interacting and once you start realizing the infrastructure that they have. So these couple, they have a feature phone, and the only way to access them is also through maybe a phone call. Then we drilled a little more about how pesticides are used in this context. So as I mentioned earlier, like there are stories about how how a person from the family is fallen sick, or somebody who took up the job of spraying in other fields, like within 1 week, how they stopped doing it. Because one of the things that we learned is like some people do take up this activity of spraying, and within 1 week, a person will know whether he'll be able to carry on with it or not. Some people are resistant to in the short term, like resistant as in like physical symptoms are not there, so they carry on with their work because there is no other means to meet the earn a living. So some people do take up this activity, and now mostly people have given this kind of pesticide um, um, to contract sprayers. Some of them have given their farm lots to contract entities, like corporate entities, where they kind of basically they rent out the plants. For example, the mango tree that you're seeing, this farmer have basically 12 mango trees. They have leased it to a private company, so they come and do all the different stages in their flowering and fruiting. They do take care of the pesticide, the pest management. So they use heavy pesticides is what we are saying. So we were able to kind of understand what they are using, and these are very harmful like chemicals that they are using. So when we kind of reached out to other stakeholders in this challenge, we kind of looked at like there was a pesticide shop in that community. There were only two pesticide shops in the entire vicinity. Like it's a big belt of farmlands, and they provide vegetables, basically vegetables and fruits to most of Kerala. You can say Kerala is a state, southern state in India, and there are prominently 2 or 3 pesticide suppliers, and we tried to procure some pesticides from there, and it was very easy. Like I told them, like I have a mango tree at home, and normally every year it is infected with worms. So we got 2 different pesticides, and that's it. And he mentioned to pour it in water with the quantity he mentioned, and you spray it on the trees. Just like that, we are able to get access to pesticides. And when you kind of think about the impact of, for example, this huminol, what all are the ingredients of this pesticide, or how it should be handled, how it should be used. All this information are available, but not in an accessible. For example, safety data sheets, like kind of I think United Nations have a wing to kind of look after the safety data sheets for almost all chemicals, all potentially harmful chemicals in the world. And but these are not translated into, or in the local community, there is also a national law saying that all these pesticides should accompany a pamphlet of how it should be used. I've seen some pamphlet which is not at all eligible, just to bypass the law. They have been sending it, and most importantly, these are given to farmers who cannot read. We also looked at other stakeholders, like government. Government is doing a good job by local networks they have established for a long time. And but these are mostly, but from our understanding, these are to kind of give out incentivized programs, and to kind of have classes on best practices and best practices on how to grow saplings and things like that. So on the pesticide aspect, like they are promoting organic farming, but from the ground reality is that, like if already they are incurring huge debt, and with organic farming, it is assured that the production will go down. So they won't be able to handle the losses they're already facing. So here, this project is an ongoing project, and we are still engaged with this community, and then we are thinking about ways to incorporate. As I mentioned, one of the partner is a computer scientist, one guy is an entomologist. So we are thinking about understanding more about the farming practices, daily live experience of farming community, and then think about solutions there. So I just brought up this because like we as especially we are all in India and we have access to all these communities across India, and the like the challenges are always spread across multi-stakeholder level. Like and as an individual researcher or as a researcher who is working with other researchers as well, what is it that we can positively do is a question that I always get. So but it's also an opportunity for us to kind of take up some really challenging projects and then see from there like what can be achieved with what we have now. I'll move to another project here, and this is based on I think couple of years. There are I think 2 years we have engaged with this particular set of users, particular set of community, and here this was the first experience I had to kind of think about people as a co-designer. I consider myself a designer, and then I was just thinking, oh, who is a designer? Like, do I have that vast experience of knowledge to kind of think about a person and then maybe design something and say, this is what you need? Do I have the audacity to do that? But that's sometimes that's how the world works, and there are so many brilliant successful stories across the world just by doing that. But I feel like it would be more important or more fruitful if we can think about ourselves as facilitators more than people who invent or people who know more than what our users know. Community co-designers was one of the framework that we kind of used in this couple of projects I'll explain. So here, give me a moment. So yeah, so this was a PVPix was a concept which is a result of a collaboration between material science, design, and engineering researchers, as well as slum community co-designers. Here, what we did was basically we tried to come up with a novel, a computer-mediated form of inter-family expression using interactive and self-sustaining photovoltaic materials. So here you can see on the window there is a pictographic message. So using a PVPix, a person in one household can create a pictographic message, such as a reminder to bring an umbrella, and which is subsequently displayed in another connected household. So this so PVPix is basically inspired by advances in material science. So that have kind of opened up a lot of interesting possibilities to think about computational materials, materials that can harvest sufficient energy from the environment to carry out computational functions, and such as storing and communicating information, sensing and actuating. So I'll just play a video for us to kind of see what this project is all about.
I think, Dani, we cannot hear actually. You have to share along with the sound.
Yeah, I guess we cannot hear. Dani, I guess we cannot still hear. Can you play the same video on YouTube maybe?
But it's fine. Like I think it's just a background music.
All right, not a problem.
So this was one of the projects that we did with community members in Dharavi, where we kind of worked with set of families, like interconnected families. They already had a network of like they had a strong communication between them. So they were all from a same region. They were all from Karnataka, and they had blood relations with each other. So we were kind of using a diary study method. Like we studied for a week on how the spaces inside their home changes, and we kind of discovered that only area that they had real good sunlight in those spaces were in the windows. So that kind of led us to think about window-based intervention for them to communicate. And then they already had many of them already had good communication, good messaging happening through other channels like WhatsApp or even phone call. So then we thought about like how to augment those discussions using this pictographic messages. And during our study for a month, like around more than 200 to 50 images, pictograms were sent across these houses. And there were very interesting scenarios where, as a researcher, we couldn't understand like what they were communicating with abstract images, but both the sender and the receiver completely understood the messages. So we kind of surfaced this in the paper, and I would encourage everyone to kind of go through the paper to understand more about the context and more about the rich value in this kind of in place displays, like which deformable displays that can kind of harvest energy from the indoor environment. So another contribution of this work was to also think about the material itself, like the dye-sensitized solar cells. So Chris, who was on like as a material scientist on this project, like he was playing around with dye-sensitized solar cells. So these are very interesting material where it can produce very less amount of energy, but these are aesthetically pleasing materials. So because it's dye-sensitized, so that we can technically we can make it of any color, and it's semi-transparent, and there are exciting possibilities because it can work on indoor lighting as well. So moving forward, we kind of explored again similar light-based interactions. This year, this was published in Kai 2022, and this time around we worked with the community in South Africa as well as Dharavi to kind of think about light-based interactions and potential devices. So this actually brings to the end of my presentation. I think I have done justice to the things that we set out to discuss in the beginning, which was broadly to think about how technology design is done in the current day and age, and how the challenges that one could face while on endeavor to think about community-based design. And third, we want to kind of touch upon the idea about multidisciplinary approach to especially when we are engaging communities. So with that, I'll ask like open the discussion for everyone.
Guys, if you have any questions, you can either write it in the chat or say it out loud, whatever works for you.